I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to the 587th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and our 208th Imagine Buffalo YouTube production, all hosted by our wonderful downtown Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN, as I like to pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or a comment, please type it into the chat box, and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation as time allows. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on a Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And please, we hope you share the link with others. Now, on to our featured speaker. This is this first week of the month of October. And so we normally would look at creativity. And one of the most creative people I know is our speaker, Alan Davis. And he's a founder of the Friends and president of the Friends of Griffin Mills. That's in the town of Aurora. Our point has been, a couple of weeks ago, we had the Black Rock Historical Society speaking about how they were celebrating as a small neighborhood regional history society, how they were celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal. And that's what we're trying to do on this program this year, has been to document various groups and their efforts. And then you have a catalog at the end of the day, looking back at how Western New York celebrated the Erie Canal. We've got some future programs as well. But today we're going to look at here in the town of Aurora, where Griffin Mills is located. Well, how did they celebrate their Heritage Day around Erie Canal 200? So with that, I'll let Alan Davis both introduce himself, a little background about himself, and Alan, tell us about how you started this organization and what the activity was that you did and how it fits into the mission of the Friends of Griffin Mills. Alan, take it away.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Let me bring my PowerPoint presentation up. There we go. All right. Okay. As Dennis said, I'm Alan Davis, Friends of Griffins Mills president. And, you know, one of the things that people often ask me is, where is Griffins Mills? Now, he already said it's in the town of Aurora, so you can see Buffalo and East Aurora and Orchard Park. Here's the arrow of Griffins Mills. Let me take it move it in a little closer here. East Aurora, Orchard Park, 28, 240. Here's West Falls. And if you leave East Aurora and come out Mill Road, and of course, it's named Mill Road because of Griffins Mills. There's Griffins Mills, there's West Falls Road, there's Cazenovia Creek, and there's 240. So I'm going to bring us in a little from 240 on Mill Road into Griffins Mills. And here is the roadway coming in. There's the bridge that crosses the Cazenovia Creek. To my left, Luther Road comes in. But I wanted to make a note about this sign here, because Friends of Griffins Mills worked to have this designed, financed, and installed with the help of the Aurora Town Highway Department. The installation was completed in July, and we're hoping to put another one in next year at the other entrance of Griffins Mills on Mill Road from the other side. So here we're looking, we've just moved a little further east. The bridge is behind me. West Falls Road is to my right. And way up there on the hill, past that vehicle, is pretty much the start of the hamlet of Griffins Mills, where we hope to put another sign up there this coming year. Here is the church sign for the Griffins Mills Presbyterian Church. I want to make a note of this building over here that was a storefront. This building was built in 1820. So here's the church. There's our meeting hall. There's the church, just to give a little orientation of what it looks like. So what is so special about Griffins Mills? Well, Abram Smith and his son Humphrey built the mill in 1810. It was sold to the Griffins shortly after that, and of course that's where the namesake comes, is from the Griffin family. The church was founded in 1810. It was founded as the West Aurora Church. And you can see some pictures here. Here's the mill. There was a sawmill behind this. This picture was taken in the late 1800s. The dam across. Want to make a note of the wooden covered bridge that was put in the 1860s. And here's the church's pictures around 1908. I want to point out the horse parking lot back here, or the horse stalls. And there's also a schoolhouse back there that was built and opened in 1837. Meanwhile, the community grew and prospered, mainly due to the Erie Canal, because of the infiltration or facilitation of the huge influx of people that came in during that time frame. So there was a very large amount of growth in this area during that time. Another special thing about Griffins Mills is its anti-slavery sentiment. In the 1840s, they issued proposals against slavery, and there was an anti-slavery society founded here even before it was started in Buffalo. And there is evidence of Underground Railroad. There's a house with a secret room that has been documented, and the owner at the time was an anti-slavery proponent. So what does this mean for today? It's important to talk about the historical legacy here. And I mentioned the homes and the influx of people. There's nearly 30 homes that were built in the early to mid 1800s. So we put this historic marker up. This is in front of the church. This was in 2018. As I said, it was founded as the West Aurora Church and then became the West Aurora Congregational Church after that, and then eventually became the Griffins Mills Presbyterian Church. The building was dedicated in 1832, and there is documentation that Sojourner Truth was here on October 1st, 1868. We think that she was here a couple other times, but you need that first-person documentation to put that on a historic marker. But there's a couple notable people here. There's Melissa Brown, who's the executive director of the History Museum. That's Robert Galler right next to him, the Aurora Town historian. That's Chuck Snyder, who was a town board member at the time, but now he's a town superintendent, and friends and neighbors. The other historic marker is down by the mill site. Behind me is the bridge. To the left is Casanova Creek. And the grist mill was built here in 1810, owned by the Griffin family, later by the Yaw brothers. And this house behind here was built by the Yaw brothers in 1897. There actually was a Gussie Yaw that lived there until around, I think it was 1974, with no running water in the house, and it still doesn't have running water, but no one really lives there now, but it is maintained by the Galucki family. But the only remnants of the mill and sawmill are the foundations, but there was a carding mill, filling mill, tannery that also stood nearby. So there were a lot of things that the mill operated in terms of other businesses. So just a moment about the Friends of Griffins Mills. we did incorporate and organize as a 501(c)(3) in 2024. And as you see, the purpose to preserve, document, and share the history and heritage of Griffins Mills with historical references and displaying historical items and records, and just increasing the awareness of the heritage and the historical value of Griffins Mills community by hosting programs. The Friends of Griffins Mills was informally organized in 2014. We became a member of the Erie County Bicentennial Committee in 2018, and we're now a member of the Erie County Historical Commission, and which organized the Erie Canal Bicentennial, and are already planning for next year's 2026 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We're looking forward to 2027, which marks the bicentennial or 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery in New York State, because we certainly have something to add to that discussion. When we talk about historic programming, we began doing historic programming in 2004, and it was mostly due to a church member, Pat Petrie. We kindly refer to her as our church matriarch. Her and her family, unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago, but her and her family had joined the 155th New York Civil War Reenactment Regiment. And so we were doing Civil War encampments and various other Civil War related programming. In 2010, we had a pretty large celebration for the 200th anniversary of the Griffins Mills Presbyterian Church. And we had a Living History Day, we had evening programs. It was a pretty fun event. And then along came the War of 1812 bicentennial, and we did Living History Days and programs for the 3 years, did a program each year, 2012, 13, and 14. And in 2018 was the Town of Aurora Bicentennial. We had a pretty big program for that. And then in 2021 was the Erie County Bicentennial. And we called that a Heritage Day because instead of just doing programs centered around the church, we incorporated the whole community because it has a very historic cemetery, the Griffins Mills Cemetery, which is now owned by Forest Lawn. And also the mill site was a significant spot, and we built programs around that. And then the Erie Canal Bicentennial. This was our promotional program. We highlighted as a community walking tour with activities, and that's kind of the rundown there. The day of the program, we handed out programs to everyone who came, and in the middle of the program was this map, just to give everyone an understanding of what's going on, what the community of Griffins Mills entailed. So you can see, here's the sawmill and grist mill with historic markers, the Griffins Mills Church, St. Paul's Lutheran Church. And we had, at the Griffins Mills Church, we had pictorial displays and panel exhibits. Our Griffins Mills display with Rob Goller there, artifacts. And then we had the other programs, Erie Canal Sal and Abraham Lincoln was here, Uncle Sam, and the indigenous spirit dancers in front of the cemetery. There's a big open lawn there and a blacksmith demonstration. So this kind of, you can see the Cazenovia Creek, Mill Road, and West Falls. And then along with that, we had a timetable of activities just so people knew what was going on when. You can see Erie Canal Sal did one program at our church, one program at St. Paul's Church. We had the indigenous spirit dancers going on in between, kids programs, music, and then the ongoing displays and activities that they could find by the color-coded sequence. Oops. So our headliner was Erie Canal Sal, who portrayed a cook on the Erie Canal, on an Erie Canal boat. She was a great storyteller who engaged her audience. In fact, she asked me secretly for names of some of the people that were in the audience. And then she would call them out during her performance, which created some hilarious situations. And it was a lot of fun, very entertaining. And as I said, she did a program at our church at 11:15, and then St. Paul's Church was actually at 2 o'clock. Both were very well attended. Here she is in action. Uh, like I said, a lot of fun, really entertaining, and people really came out of there with smiles on their faces. So our next headliner was the Indigenous Spirit Dancers. They're from Salamanca, and they put on a performance lasted over an hour and a half. Here's some pictures. You see how they would explain what they were doing and what it meant to their culture and traditions, and do some dancing. They also got the audience involved there also. So again, very engaging, very entertaining, just a lot of fun. Just to the right of the spirit dancers was well, here it's what happened to my mouse? There it is. Elmer John Jr. And I gotten his name and I called him up and said, would you like to participate? And he set up this display of artifacts, crafts, showing traditions and customs, Haudenosaunee and Seneca display. And when I got there and met him personally, I looked at him and I said, oh my God, you look awful familiar. And sure enough, he participated in a program from 2012, one of our War of 1812 programs. It was the first one. And that program was rather interesting because you can see him over here. This was a skit reenactment that we did in an evening program where we had someone who played who was playing Erastus Granger from that time period. He was the first postmaster of Buffalo. He was also in charge of Indian affairs, and he met with the Haudenosaunee in order to negotiate a term of neutrality. That was in July of 1812. And the purpose of that was to keep the Native Americans uninvolved, keep them from being involved in the War of 1812, since it was such a, British American fight. So, but I can't remember his name, but this is Al Parker. Al Parker is, unfortunately, he passed away in August of 2022, but very notable in promoting culture and Haudenosaunee culture and tradition. And he was related to a descendant of Red Jacket. I think his great-grandfather, I think it was his great-grandfather, was Eli Parker, who served in the Civil War and was the military secretary to General Ulysses S. Grant. And at Appomattox, because he was the military secretary, he wrote out the terms of the Confederate surrender there at Appomattox to end the Civil War. So a lot of history in that family, and he did a lot to, as I said, promote the culture and traditions of the Haudenosaunee in this area. Moving on, this was our blacksmith display and demonstration, showing his trade. Very interesting guy. He attracted a lot of attention there, very interesting. This is our, well, it's just our welcome table where we handed out our programs. And this is J.R. Rice showing his artifacts that he recovered from his metal detecting that he did at the church and the mill site. And for our Erie Canal displays, the New York State Museum in Albany put out a great panel display. And this was it, 8 panels talking about the construction and building of the Erie Canal. And we were very fortunate to get this display it was loaned to us by the Tonawanda Kenmore Historical Society. We were very appreciative of them loaning this to it so we could use it for the day. And then these were outdoor displays. Here's the panel display. We also printed out 16 historic pictures of the Erie Canal. And we had we were fortunate to have Michael Chimay, who's right there. He's a neighbor, but he was also a docent for the Buffalo Maritime Museum. So he led the discussions here for the exhibits, which was, so a very knowledgeable person to talk about the Erie Canal and what it, how it was built and many things that went on there. And then down here is our typical Griffins Mills pictorial display of just old pictures of the church and buildings and the neighborhood, the mill site, etc. And there's Rob Goller there to explain the historical aspect of Griffins Mills. Also want to point out this display right here. I mentioned the schoolhouse that was in the back that was it was torn down in 1966. It was rather disputed as to whether or not it should be torn down. So we had 3 members of the church sneak in there at 6 a.m. the morning of that it was going to be torn down, and they took the cupola off. And just more recently, in the last, it was refurbished. And this past year, we built this display pavilion highlighting the cupola and having a history of the schoolhouse posted back there. So another key item for the history of Griffins Mills. And here we had Uncle Sam and Abraham Lincoln, who wandered around all day and had a lot of fun talking to people. And then we finished the day off with the No Repeats brass band that had a blend of Americana music as we were all winding down. And that's pretty much what we did for the day. Just some additional information. If you ever want to look it up on the history of Griffins Mills, there's a Wikipedia page, and the Griffins Mills Church, there's a Wikipedia page. And of course, our more ongoing activities on our Facebook pages, one for the church and one for Friends of Griffins Mills. And that's about it.
Ellen, that's a wonderful summary of what was a great day. Nice weather and perfect weather, and a lot of work goes into doing something like that. I can only imagine. So
well, you're right. You're right about the weather. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, as many days have been this past summer. And
we've all been fortunate. So part of my thinking is imagine lifelong learning, and I call it imagine place-based lifelong learning. And the idea is so much of history is right in our own backyards, and to try to help us who live here see it, let alone tourists who might visit here, and that seems to be more and more. The awareness of that seems to be growing. Groups like Explore Buffalo are great storytellers here in this area, and you through this day become a great storyteller for the early that early 19th century. I do find it the talk about all around us is artificial intelligence, the fourth industrial revolution, if you will. That first revolution was all about power. It was about water being dammed up and grist mills and sawmills being run from the power that was generated. The second one would be locomotive energy in the post-Civil War days. But here we are really with one of the few places trying to tell that story of that first industrial revolution as best as we can, because it happened right there on Mill Road. So hats off to you. Hazen, do we have any questions that have come in? Or
Hello.
there?
I have a question.
Good.
I'm curious. It looks like the history of Griffin's Mills includes soap making. Are there any people who are creating soap now in the area according to the style of the historical soap making?
Oh, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer. To be blunt, I guess. I mean, there certainly are um, things related to that, organic farms and people who are living off the property. So I would guess that there, if you looked around, there probably would be um, some examples of that.
Well, Hazen, that's a very good question, obviously. And obviously people were making soap or using soap, I assume. So we're
Hopefully.
going to have our Crack Imagine research team check it out, and in future storytelling, we'll bring the subject back up when we find answers. How's that? It's a logical question to ask. Thank you for doing so. But anybody else come in with any questions?
Oh, yeah. So
Good.
here we have a viewer says, given Erie County's geology, with several creeks forming near the southeast corner of the county and then meandering north and west, there must be a number of special places like Griffin's Mills hidden away around our countryside, such as Hobuck Flats. What other special places like Griffin's Mills are around the county?
Well, there was also a grist mill in West Falls. Um, there was also one just outside of East Aurora that were all initiated by the Smiths. But almost every small community had a grist mill um, or water power just to run industry. The reason we have a pretty good list of the types of industries that the Griffins Mills uh, mill ran is because in their title search, there were instances where they sold the rights, the water rights to it. And it would say maybe a cabinet maker or a tannery or so that some of that stuff is documented. We talked to, well, our historic marker says carding mill and fulling mill and things like that. So yeah, some of those records are there. Um, the Griffins mill run by the Yaw brothers. When was it? It burned down in the I can't remember the date right now, but it was I was going to say in the 50s or I think it was in the 50s. And of course they stopped the grist mill stopped, but they still hold um, you'd have to come to our church hall and see some of the older pictures that are in there of the mills and the different things that ran there. And we also have they were known for their buckwheat. So they specialized in certain things, and we have a bag that says right on it 1903 that they would fill with buckwheat, and people used to drive for miles around to buy their buckwheat.
You know,
Cool.
Ellen, you're reminding me too that that building next to the church, you envision that as a museum, so that people that may have artifacts, may have stories to tell, should be contacting you. Perhaps helping you accumulate things for that museum. How's that?
Yeah. Well, we just started collecting things. People obviously are getting that impression, and because somebody just brought us a desk from the original schoolhouse that somehow they had acquired. So that's in the hall now.
Great, great. Well, we're running right up against our half-hour time limit, so we'll wrap this up. Again, the rest of October, November, and even December, we're going to point to Erie Canal 200, and down the road, Melissa Parker will be speaking. She too is a direct descendant of Eli Parker and who you alluded to. So all these programs are kind of weaving together. The final program will be December 9th, and we will have a interview with the folks that are presently on the Seneca Chief as they sail from Buffalo, stopping at various ports along the Erie Canal. Most port towns designed day-long celebrations for their arrival. So they're going to be capturing that in a video sense, and will be sharing it with us. I think one of the first times to put together that package. And it'll be the executive director of the Maritime Institute doing that. So look forward to that. But we've got Ken Burns, the program that Ken Burns is coming together in November. And that'll be shown here throughout America next year. So we will, not Ken Burns, but WNED, the TV component of Buffalo Toronto Public Media, BTPM. So we're going to wrap this up and tell you that next week, we're going to have Louis Canada. Now, Louis, I happened to meet, he's the restoration project manager for the project that's been going on for some time of restoring E.B. Green and Sons Buffalo Castle Complex. That's the Mayfair Lane. So that should be an interesting one. He's got plenty of pictures to show both the beauty of the original and also all the work that goes into maintaining a beautiful building. So thinking about Gussie Yaw, who lived to 2005, Alan, just and lived in a house with no plumbing and no electricity, but lived there all those years. We think of her as we wish you all, thanking you for joining us today, and hoping to see you again. I'm Dennis Galucki. Be well and good day.